To say the organizers of Boston's Olympic bid have faced some tough stories would be an understatement. But now the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the U.S. Olympic Committee could drop Boston unless local support for the Games improves. The USOC is denying the report, but as WGBH's Adam Riley reports, it's still raising a few eyebrows.
Local support for Boston's Olympic bid has dropped sharply from 51% in January to 36% today. Now the Wall Street Journal says the U.S. Olympic Committee might reverse its selection of Boston and go with L.A. or San Francisco instead. Today in Dorchester, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh didn't sound too concerned. Have you had any indication that the USOC is rethinking its selection of Boston?
No, just what I've read in the paper and everything, they've rebutted it all.
But if the USOC doesn't have a fallback plan, maybe it should. The committee submits its final choice for the 2024 Summer Games this September. But Massachusetts voters won't weigh in on Boston's bid until next year. Today, I asked the mayor whether the USOC can afford to gamble that backers of Boston's bid will win that vote. Here's what he had to say.
That can happen in Germany. Germany is going to put this in, a couple of cities in Germany are going to put this on the ballot too. It could happen anywhere. So I don't think they necessarily should be concerned. I think what we have to do is make sure that we tell a good story to the people of Boston and the people of Massachusetts, that they understand this is important for them.
Today in Copley Square, I found a few people who were already on board.
I think it'd be just what the city needs. I think there's more support for it than the papers are reporting or that other people believe. People I talk to are very much in favor of it.
But I found more people opposed.
So it would just be a complete mess.
They want to come right through my neighborhood.
Where do you live?
Savin Hill.
I don't think it would be a good idea.
Whether Olympic boosters can convince them is debatable. This morning, Boston 2024 Chairman John Fish said his side needs to communicate more effectively.
The narrative that wasn't correct got ahead of us a little bit, and we've made some mistakes.
But Mayor Walsh was more defiant.
I'm not sure exactly how much sincere opposition is out there.
And if you don't take your opponents seriously, it's hard to change their minds. Adam Riley, WGBH News.
We asked Boston 2024 CEO if he could join us. He declined. We then asked for any of the committee's leaders. The invitation was declined as well. So joining us to talk about this are Olympians of another kind. Our nightly caucus, former Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea Cabral, she's not smiling though, C.A. Webb, the Executive Director of the New England Venture Capital Association, and former Massachusetts Attorney General Martha Coakley. Good to see all three of you. If I can start with you, Martha. When you read this Wall Street Journal article, it's hard not to think the source, even though they deny it, is the United States Olympic Committee itself dropping a dime and saying, essentially, this is the beginning of the end. Am I reading too much into this?
Yes.
Why?
Because this is a long process, and there's going to be ups and downs, and this is going to happen. People should have this discussion, but people are treating this like it's a presidential election, or this is a candidate, and you're up, you're down. Let's have this discussion. There's some good things that could come out of it. There may be some disadvantages, but there's a light being shown on it. And to look at it, who wins today, who loses today, I think it's the wrong way to go about it.
Did the USOC drop a dime, CA, or no?
I agree with Martha. I think that this is a startup. I mean, this is the world I swim in, right? And if you can't ride a wave, you shouldn't be participating.
You're about to make it unanimous, I can tell.
Absolutely. It's possible that there were people on the committee that would have preferred a different city. And I think that it's wise to do polling about public opinion just as a matter of course, regardless of where it's going to be held. But I think all of the focus, and in fact, you actually said it at the beginning, you're focusing on who's to blame. That's kind of a problem in the state, and we can't get out of our own way and wait for the facts, analyze the facts, and spend the time on the substance to really figure out whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea.
Speaking of that, let's talk about that. Everybody, including John Fish, I think, would say this bid has been a bit of a mess. Two Boston Globe writers clearly disagree on who's to blame, writing dueling columns this week. Here's a line from Joan Vanocchi's piece. On the plus side, Fish, meaning John Fish, believes in the 2024 mission. On the minus side, the mission is too caught up in Fish. Indeed, Fish is the best weapon Olympic skeptics we have. Long may he reign. And then Shirley Leung's piece in today's paper, she argues, it's not leadership, but in the spirit of pogo, it's us. Quote, the group hasn't spent a single penny of taxpayer money, nor has a single shovel hit the ground, yet people act like Team Fish has been running up a public tab and the games are a foregone conclusion. If the blame game is a waste of time, how do you fix what's wrong unless you know who's causing the problem, Andrea Cabral?
I'm not suggesting that accountability and rectifying problems isn't appropriate. What I'm suggesting is that we focus immediately, right out of the gate, on who's to blame, and then we call for their head. And I don't care whether it's John Fish, he should step away. Olga Roche, she should step away.
DCF,
Beverly Scott,
former head of
it's
DCF.
exactly what we do, and it is parochial to the point of being puritanical, and it is the very reason why we're half visionary, half living in the dark ages in Massachusetts, because we're cynical, and our instinct is to say what is wrong first.
You're both shaking your heads up now. You're just going to agree with this and we can move on?
I love her.
Yeah.
I love her. No, look, I
But
think
it's not just the beginning, as she said. We're well into this. It's been months. Misstep after misstep after misstep. Somebody's causing the problem, no?
I think the biggest issue is that we all know for big ideas to advance, many people need to own them. And this was, the communication has been it's one guy's idea. And it's really easy to hate on him.
Well, I'd like to see a little more reporting on what the facts are. I mean, columnists do what columnists do, and that's great. I love Joan, I love Shirley, but their job is to create that kind of controversy, and people then get an opinion before they even know what the...
Martha Coakley, in a spirit of 3 days, 2 weeks ago, asked the House Transportation Chair how much money is already in the pipeline for this Olympics Committee transportation infrastructure. He said one thing. The next day, the CEO, Rich Davies, said another thing. And when I asked Charlie Baker, the next day he said, frankly, I don't know yet who's telling the truth. So we've tried, but the thing keeps moving. In any case, I'm going to shift gears because there's too much unanimity here to a gender discrimination case that was the talk of Silicon Valley and the nation. Ellen Powell is a junior partner at the prominent venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins Caulfield and Byers. She sued the firm, claiming she was passed over for promotions, was eventually fired because she was a woman, because she complained about discrimination. Last week, a San Francisco jury found against Powell and for the company, but many believe the lawsuit is just the beginning of change. In fact, a group of female tech workers got together this week to take out a full-page ad in the Palo Alto Daily Post thanking Powell. What a perfect group to talk to. First woman attorney general, first woman sheriff, and if I read today's Globe, you're in an industry where female partners at U.S. venture capital firms, 6%, startups with a female CEO receiving venture funding, 3%. Is she Anita Hill? Are we going to look back on this and say this woman lost but changed everything, C.A. Webb?
Let me just say about those numbers, it's basically zero.
It is zero, yes.
That. Is she Anita Hill? I think that Ellen Powell's a big deal. I think she moved the ball down the court significantly. I think there are people on the other side who are saying she wasn't quite the right woman to represent this case, but most of us agree she's turned on a public dialogue that dearly, dearly needed to happen.
Are we going to remember Ellen Powell? Is this game
so.
changer?
No, I think so. And I've seen that, for every wrong, there may not be a legal remedy. And certainly bringing an individual case for one person where there's policies and practice that cut across a lot of people, it's hard for that one plaintiff to make the case because employers are sophisticated, they know what the rules are. And what she's really saying is, I'm in a culture where I can't get ahead. That culture may not even realize what they're doing. They don't even think they're discriminating.
Did you ever bring a case as Attorney General which you thought you were going to lose, but you thought even losing would move the ball forward, Martha Coakley?
Well, look, when we sued and we challenged the Defense of Marriage Act, everyone said, uphill battle, uphill battle. We weren't sure we were going to win, but we knew it was the right case. But we had great plaintiffs on one side, and we realized we had really good facts to make this move ahead.
Virtually no one knows Anita Hill has lived in this community for years and years and years, pretty silently. But my radio co-host, Marjorie Egan, says from that moment, everything changed for women in workplaces. Is Powell going to be the same kind of deal, Andrew Cabral?
I think that if she is Anita Hill, it will be in part because she had to sort of stand alone. And in Martha, I'm sure will sympathize, as CA will, with the idea that if you come alone before a jury on a case like this, you have to be perfect. And most people know that Rosa Parks wasn't Rosa Parks initially. It was someone else who didn't give up their seat, but she was sort of more palatable to the public. And I think that it's a very difficult environment where so much money and power is at stake to get other women who have experienced the exact same thing. I mean, the story about the guy who shows up in the doorway in his bathrobe, where was the woman where was she on the witness list? I think they testified to that happening, but you didn't see her up there, and I think that that's what makes her Anita Hill, is that she forged ahead by herself.
One of the guys in the firm who actually supported Ellen Powell said they didn't want to invite her or any women to a dinner with Al Gore because, quote, women kill the buzz. Speaking of industries where women are not advancing, there was a piece by the same Shirley Leung about a week or so ago about the new head of the Boston Chamber of Commerce. She guessed it would be Jim Rooney. It was Jim Rooney, now was head of the convention center. center. She wrote to the search committee he was the aging white guy. Not that there's anything wrong with aging white guys, with a track record. Then she spoke about a local woman. And here's what a local venture capitalist said. The Boston business community is already there, meaning ready for a change. The question is whether the chamber is the chamber ready? You were the woman she was talking about. Was the chamber just not ready for the likes of you, C.A. Webb? Honest. Give me an honest answer. I know you don't want to answer this question. What's the truth? I know Jim Rooney's a fine guy. I'm sure he is. What's the answer?
I think that that Jim's selection tells the whole story. I don't think we really need to talk about it.
We do need to talk about it because you're quoted in a Boston Business. No, excuse me. You're quoted in a Boston Business Journal piece about speaking at a conference. Only 10% were women, and you none on the main stage. Boston business community, you said, doesn't reflect what the whole of the community has become. Is that what happened at the chamber?
I think that our city has yet to get truly comfortable with putting women and minorities in positions of power. Right. I think
is she not head of the chamber because she's a woman, Martha Coakley?
But see, this is the hard thing no one can say, right? I have my own suspicions. You know, I'm not going to say I've lost races because I'm female, but those are factors that enter into it. And when you get down to case-by-case basis, like this case, like this election, there's always reasons why she didn't win that case or why CA wasn't. But you have to start looking at the patterns and you have to look at the numbers. And then you have to say, well, if we're not getting at it case by case, then we have to do something
15 seconds, you can wrap it up.
Well, of course, obviously we've been in consensus
on everything, so
time,
why should we?
Which is precisely why if there were more groups of women, large groups of women in more positions of power, there would be a lot less conflict and a lot more consensus because we actually know what's going on and we're actually right nearly all of the time.
And we work together to get good results.
That's
so
right.
We need a critical mass of women in our organizations to make changes.
So sorry if that makes you uncomfortable.
10 minutes together, you and I didn't even fight. It's a pleasure. Nice to see you, CA. Good to see you as well, Martha
Always
Coakley.
a pleasure. Thanks
so much.